What is up, everybody? I hope you are having a fantastic evening. It's been a while, but I am back and ready to roll. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. Training camp opened up today. Unfortunately, as most of you know, I am not attending this year, which puts me in a really awkward spot because it's like, how do you have content around training camp when you're not at training camp, right? What is it that I can do? Is it that I take in what everybody's saying and regurgitate it and give an opinion? It's tough. So I'm gonna have to figure this out over the next 2 weeks while everybody's having fun at camp. Make sure that you do go show those love that are able to make it to camp though, and report on it. Whether you agree with what they're saying or whatever, they're definitely putting in hard work, and that goes for everybody. So make sure that you show them love and dedicate your time during this 2 week process to them for sure, because they're going to be able to give you really everything that they're seeing. And the way that camp is set up is everybody's kind of in different spots and catches different things and are looking for different things. And so consuming all of that content's important. Although I will say it does look a little weird this year. It looks like the field's kind of flipped, which means unless you're on the field and have a pass, if you're in the stands, it's probably going to be really, really hard for those guys and gals to report on what's going on, much harder than what it's been in the past. So don't envy them. But either way, shout out to those that are able to make it. And like I said, continue to show them love. Now, I do want to say also that a little over a week ago, I did a stream. That was the last stream I did. I came on here and said I had some personal family matters that, prayers, good vibes, what have you. I just want to say thank you to everybody that said anything, positive prayers, everything. It was awesome. I saw it all. I didn't really respond to any of it. I'm still going through a lot, but things are, as far as that goes, looking better. I did have some personal family things that crept up on me as well, that put me in Vegas early this week. So that is adding on to everything. But overall, like, my mental state is in a really good place. Like I said, I think when we talked last, I was 6 days into a fast. I ended up fasting for 8 days, praying like crazy, continue to pray. So everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. But I had to acknowledge everybody that was reaching out to me. I thought it was just so nice that people even cared. And I appreciate all of you who put any thought in my direction. It really does mean the world to me. And I just want to say thank you for that, if that was you. And if not, thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate you. All right, let's get into this because training camp interceptions are always a thing every year. And to me, the question is always, well, do they matter? Do they not? Is there context in which they matter? I will tell you, 2 years ago when I went to camp, I talked not about interceptions alone, but I literally charted every throw from every quarterback and then came back and walked everybody through throw by throw with every player, because at that time there was a quarterback competition, not for quarterback number one, but for quarterback number two. It was the Sam Darnold, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy was working back from his elbow. So there was just a lot of quarterback drama going on, and people wanted to hear it. So I did the best I could to chart everything and then give context to every single throw that was made throughout the day. Last year, though, the approach was very, very different from myself. And last year I was out there with coach. We didn't give a rip about an interception or any of the quarterback stats. We didn't keep a single stat. But what we did do is walk you through play by play what was happening on the field. I did it by watching the ball and letting you know what was going on there. And then coach was watching the trenches at the same time, and we were able to give you a nice full picture of what happened play to play, all the context, everything. I don't think, I mean, other than just giving you the context of what was going on, the name Brock Purdy wasn't really mentioned. We didn't make a big deal about any of his interceptions or turnovers. We just said, here's the context, here's what happened, moving on. Well, of course, this year comes around. I'm not there. And this is, I want to be clear about this too. What you're never going to get from me is acting like something is happening or I know something's happening when I'm not there. I'm not there. So the way that others cover the team, I appreciate them for it. It's definitely very different than how I choose to cover when I'm there, but that doesn't make me right or them wrong or any of that. It's just we cover everything differently. But I appreciate everybody's different approach because it does help put together the picture for those of us that are not at camp as to what's going on. What I don't like though is that there's always a cast of characters that don't attend training camp. They never attend training camp. And then they've got the loudest voices as if they know what the hell's going on. I'm not there this year. You're not going to get that from me. Like I said, I'm struggling to figure out how to have content during this 2-week period when everybody else is there because I can't tell you everything that's happening at camp and give you that context the way that I normally would. And it's frustrating for me, but it is what it is. I had personal things going on and I chose not to attend. So for those that are attending, I'm not going to sit here and break their coverage down and talk about how trash it is, but some people like to do that. So what does this have to do with the training camp interceptions, which is where this conversation started? Well, we're seeing it already with it being a discussion, and we're seeing it already with people getting frustrated that it's even a topic of discussion. And this is not to pick on anyone in this thread. This is just this right here. I saw this as I was going through Twitter right before I went live and was like, "Oh, this is exactly the microcosm of what I'm referring to here, where you have a group of people that don't attend and have strong opinions, and then you have the people that do attend and they're trying to do their best to give you context, and you just crap on them for it. It's like, well, then don't listen, don't watch. Like I remember 2 years ago when I was there and the quarterback thing was such a big deal. I gave my honest opinion about everything that I saw. And then I gave you the context as to why I thought what I thought. Every day I had a different quarterback being better. I had reasons as to why, had nothing to do with completion percentage, although I did give you their completions, but I told you throw by throw what happened. And then at the end, I said, hey, this is what I think of what I saw from the quarterbacks. And people were so up in arms because it wasn't what they wanted to hear. But the reality was guys like Eric Crocker were there, backed me up on everything because he saw what I saw. Like, but and other people looked at it differently, and that's okay. That's okay. But don't be the person that is watching this and being like, well, this person covered it this way, and this person's covering it this way. I like how the coverage is going here. I don't like how the coverage is going here. So now I'm going to crap on this person and be like, well, they said this, so I believe them, and you're just making things up. No, people see things differently. Think about it like this. We watch games all the time. All year long, we watch games. How many times have you seen a single play dissected by different content creators, different media personalities, yourself and your friends, the chats, whatever? One single play can be dissected a million different ways. So when you've got 5, 6, 7 days of camp coverage, your perception easily could be very different than someone else. Very different. And it's okay to have the difference of opinion. Just take it all in, take it for what it's worth, try to get a baseline of what this team is. And that way you're not blindsided or surprised when the season starts and the team looks like the team looks. But I wanted to show this because, like I said, it is a microcosm of what's going on here. You guys all know that Grant's my guy. I'm not here. This is not to defend Grant at all, or pick on Matt here, who I think is a content creator himself or was a content. I don't know for sure. I could have that wrong, but I thought that he was at one point, or he was at one. He still is. I don't know. Either way, I just want to show the back and forth because it's exactly what I'm talking about. Matt retweets Grant and says, already doing camp interceptions and translating that to real game production. Football is back. And I'll let you in on an inside thing too. If in case you're not white, those of you that are white know exactly what's happening here. But when somebody calls somebody buddy, a white guy to another white guy, or pal, or just anything that seems that on the surface would be a harmless, almost like compliment, like, oh, that's my friend. That's when white guy is mad. So Grant's a little perturbed here by calling him buddy. I can already tell you, because his response is, buddy, he threw 12 picks in 15 games last year. Now, Matt, also perturbed, uses pal here, I believe, in his response. He says, now do the injuries from last year, pal. Easy to cherry pick if you'd like. Hand-wringing camp picks on the very first day is silly, but par for the course for you. How many more camp days before you call for Mac Jones to start? We all know it's coming. And then Grant says, Purdy's interception percentage has gone up every year. Matt responds, again, that may well be. He may well be bad this season. That's got nothing to do with the pro clutching about camp picks in July whilst players are wearing shorts and there is no install. You've been talking camp picks for near a decade. And Grant says, nobody's clutching pearls. Pal, buddy. It's always funny. But the reason that I bring that up is, and this is a question, because I know that there are a lot of people that think the way that Matt does here, right? But I also understand like where Grant is coming from. Now, I watched the video. Grant talked about the pick or picks. He makes a snarky remark every time he talks about the picks because people say that, oh, he's just working on things. Brock's just working on things. And so Grant will be funny and he'll poke fun at that. And he'll be like, yeah, he's just figuring out if throwing directly to a linebacker is a good idea and what happens. And what happens is a pick six. So he's having a little fun with it, right? That's his personality. But there is a big group of people that think they mean nothing. And I'm not saying that they mean anything or whatever your opinion is your opinion. But to act as if Grant is over the top or anybody is over the top for even talking about them is pretty funny. Like it's pretty weird, especially when you're not there. You're not there. You've never been there. You don't know what it's like. You don't know how to cover things. You don't know how there are people that will intentionally not talk about the picks because they don't want the backlash. Like, you don't know any of that. So when somebody talks about it, and nowhere did I hear Grant say, hey, this means something big. This is this. Now, maybe he did in a later video. I don't know. I'm just going based off the video that he reposted, which I assume that's all he watched. He didn't say anything other than a snarky joke. And then he threw two picks. But if you don't like the coverage, don't act as if there's nothing that like Grant isn't getting access that you're not, or these content creators aren't getting access that you're not because you're mad with how they cover things. Then go yourself. Cover it yourself or shut up. Like that's the way that I see it. Now, if the coverage, once the coverage goes from what happened to opinion, if Grant were to actually say the way that this is being phrased here from Matt, if Grant were to actually say, hey, Purdy threw 2 picks today. This is the 3rd day in a row he's done so. To me, this is a clear sign that his interception rate is going to go up this year as it has the last few years. The 49ers are in trouble. All right, I get it. Probably a little too far. But simply saying the picks happened, we're to a point that we can't even hear that our quarterback threw picks in training camp without getting frustrated. It's pretty stupid. Every quarterback throws interceptions in camp. Now, do I think that they are a big deal? Well, first of all, again, I didn't see them. I wasn't there. So I don't want to put context into why they happened, but they happened. And they happen every year. For me, one of really the one thing, and I've said it a million times and I will say it again because I feel like I have to. Otherwise, people that are new or people that forget will misconstrue what I'm saying here or why I have the opinion that I have, and it will go sideways. When Brock Purdy was coming out of the draft, I had him as a 3rd round grade. I did not have him as a 3rd round grade. Excuse me. The reason I didn't have him higher than a 3rd round grade, there we go. The reason I didn't have him higher than a 3rd round grade had nothing to do with his arm strength or his size or any of that. It was everything to do with he was reckless with the football. And that worried me at the college level. Now, I think that Brock Purdy has cleaned it up a bit for sure, especially his rookie year. It looked really good. But we have seen where Brock Purdy continues to be reckless with the football at times. So when we get into these camps and you see, this is day one. I'm not saying that this is going to be a trend, but let's say it is a trend. Let's say every other day he's throwing a pick or 2 picks or what have you. And there's a trend there. Does that mean he's going to be awful this year? No. But what it does tell you is that he still has that yellow in him that he had since college that can be worrisome. That's what it tells you. Now, does that mean that he's going to throw a million picks? No. No, it doesn't. It's just something to be aware of. What I'm saying is it's not nothing. It doesn't have to be everything. And I think player by player, it's very different. Very different. If Aaron Rodgers in his prime was throwing a pick a day in camp, I don't think there's really anything to talk about because we know that when he got to the regular season, he was very rarely reckless with the football. Like he protected the football at a rate that nobody in the history of the game did. So 2 guys can have a similar camp and it can mean completely different things. But for Brock, being that that was the number one concern of mine coming out of college, and it has shown itself throughout the course of his career, especially when CMC is not on the field. Yeah, I think it's at least worth noting. It's at least worth noting. And to act as if people can't even talk about them and they mean nothing, okay. Well, there are people that won't talk about them. So just turn your attention elsewhere if you don't want to hear about it. But if people are willing to talk about it and bring it up, I don't know, maybe it's nice to know. Maybe it's nice to know. So we'll see. We'll see. You know, like I said, coverage is different for everybody. Respect everybody and how they do it. But there is differences. Some people won't talk about it at all. Some people will talk about it all the time. Some people will just mention it and move on. There's different ways to do it. And I do think that there are inherent biases as well. And it all depends on what your opinion of camp interceptions are. If you don't think they're a big deal, then you may not even talk about it. Or you just might brush by it just to let people know. And if you do think it's a big deal, yeah, you might harp on it a little bit more. So anyways, I just I hate when people that aren't there have an opinion on what did and didn't happen and how important it is or is not. It's like, you're not there. You're not there. So to sit here and tell me how I need to cover things, or I should have done it this way, or I don't know what I'm talking about, it's like, cool. Then show me how it's done. Show me how it's done. So that's what I would encourage Matt to do. Show up to camp, and why don't you talk through flaw for flaw where Grant doesn't get it right? It's pretty easy. Just go, right? All right, let's talk about these wide receivers real quick. Wide receiver room is pretty dang interesting. We've got Ricky Pearsall, who was held out because of precautionary reasons in OTAs. They're gone for 50 days, and he still wasn't ready to go. Now, the good news is that Ricky was on the sidelines. It sounds like he looked really good. Kyle Shanahan talked about that they're really keeping him out mainly to get his conditioning up, and that he should be back on the field on Sunday. So that's great news for Ricky. Ricky can't afford to miss any time. Ricky, here's a fun fact for you. Ricky Pearsall is 8 months younger than Jamar Chase. I'm going to say that again. Ricky Pearsall is 8 months younger than Jamar Chase. The same Jamar Chase who has been in the league for 5 years, has established himself as the second best receiver in football. Now, the expectation for Ricky was never to be Jamar Chase. That's not why I draw the comparison. The reason I draw the comparison is because Ricky Pearsall isn't a normal rookie or second year player where, yeah, he's only 23 now and things will be fine. No, he's going to be 25 when the season starts. He cannot have a down season this year. He was drafted at the time to a team that thought they were contending for a Super Bowl. And within that, they wanted to draft a polished player that they felt could help them win that Super Bowl last year. Now, unfortunately for Ricky, things didn't work out that way. Unfortunately for the team, things didn't work out that way. But Ricky cannot have a down season. And Ricky certainly cannot miss big chunks of the offseason for a second straight year in a row and expect to be polished when the season starts. So this is great news that he is going to be healthy. It sounds like he will be there. So Sunday, I think pads come on Monday. That's really good news. Now he just has to stay healthy. They need him. He needs to have a good year. This is not a typical year 2 for a player. Speaking of year 2, Jacob Cowling injured his hamstring. I believe he had a hamstring issue last camp as well, if I remember. I don't remember. I want to say every day I was there. Maybe he was there a day, but he was recovering from a hamstring injury then. He's doing it now. Second year player. And when this receiving room is at 100%, Cowing is 100% also on the bubble, though. So when you have Ayuk and Jennings and Pearsall and Watkins and Buddy from the Rams, Cowing is a bubble player. He's a bubble player. So he needs this too. Very different reason than Ricky needs it. There's zero chance that Ricky is on the practice squad or a bubble player on the roster. He was just drafted in round 1 last year. Even if he was that player, they're not going to make that decision this quickly. Cowing, however, was a 5th-round pick. And if he can't stay healthy for a second straight year, he may not be on the team at some point. So he needs this big time as well. And hamstring injuries can linger. And especially for a speedy player like Cowing, this is a rough start to camp for him. Hopefully he can recover. It also came out this week that Ayuk, the return for him, according to Shanahan, is hopeful for the first half of the season. Now, I will say, I heard about 6 weeks ago that he was potentially on pace for week 1. I heard this the same day that Matt Mayoko initially came out and said, oh, Brandon Ayuk's going to start the season on PUP. And then about a few days later, it sounds like Mayoko had heard exactly what I had heard, because he walked that back a bit and said, well, hey, there's an outside chance that he actually could be ready week 1. I still think he starts on PUP because they want to be safe with him, which is a fair assessment and probably the right thing to do. But either way, for a while now, it has been known that Ayuk potentially could be ready physically for week 1. Whether he plays or not, that's a different thing, but could physically be ready to go week 1. So when Shanahan comes out and says, hey, we hope to have him back first half of the season. Now, he didn't say Ayuk specifically. He was lumped in with other players that are working through some injuries, but that's definitely different than what's been reported and what I had heard as well. I would be shocked if Ayuk isn't back by week 5. I do think that PUP is likely for him just to be safe. And I'll say week 6 to be safe. I want to say week 5 is a Thursday night football game. That's a short week. Easily could miss that just because of the preparation. But yeah, after that, I think he will be back unless there's some sort of setback. So I wouldn't get lost necessarily in what Kyle Shanahan said here. I do think that he was lumped in with a couple other players that were injured. First half of the season for Ayuk may be different than first half of the season for Malik Mustafa, right? So just generally speaking, saying the first half of the season, that's fair for all of them. Now let's talk about Jawan Jennings. Jawan Jennings is at camp. He's not holding in. Last show that I did was a blur, if I'm being honest with you, but I'm pretty sure that I made the point then that Jawan Jennings was never going to hold in or hold out or whatever, because he's not that caliber of player. Not every player in the NFL that is up for a contract can be the guy that's like, yeah, give me a trade. And if not, pay me. And if not, then I'm going to hold in. That is reserved for the number 1 guys on your team at position groups. And even then, just because you're the number 1 guy, if you're not considered pretty damn good or really good in your respective position, like top 10-ish, you don't get to do that. Jawan Jennings was never going to hold in. That is not in the cards for a player like Jawan Jennings. This is not to bash Jawan Jennings. This is not to say he's a bad player. The 49ers don't need him. But what this is saying is that he is not the caliber of player that can just dictate, give me a new contract or I'm holding in, because what the 49ers would get in return for him is not worth it. They also know that he's not going to sit out a season, and it just kind of is what it is. Not every player can be a hold-in player. Brandon Ayuk, at the time when he did it, was considered a top 10 wide receiver. How many number 2 wide receivers across the league are holding in and finding good results? Like, I don't, has it ever happened? T. Higgins withstanding, and I don't even think that T. Higgins missed camp. If I'm not mistaken, he definitely had a gripe with being franchise tagged, but I don't remember him missing any camp. And even if he did, being the number 2 receiver behind Jamar Chase, who is arguably the best receiver in the world, and being T. Higgins, who is arguably a top 12 wide receiver himself, I mean, That's that's different. That is he's a number one receiver on a lot of teams. Jawan Jennings is the number one receiver on no teams. And if he is the number one receiver, that means you're in a really, really bad spot. Technically, yes, I can already hear it. He's the number one receiver on the 49ers, Jesse. Yeah, because Brandon Ayuk's hurt. But I mean, when if every receiving core across the NFL is healthy, what team is Jawan Jennings the number one receiver on? I don't think it exists. It shouldn't exist. And if it does, that team is in a world of hurt. They are. So he was never going to hold in or do any of that. Now, requesting a trade, certainly, I guess he could. I wouldn't expect the 49ers to do it unless they're getting at least a fourth round pick. Maybe they're looking for a fourth round pick that could escalate to a third, but that's about what he's worth as a fourth round pick. So why would the 49ers trade him for a fourth when they're in this big of a situation? But also, that doesn't mean you have to pay him. I personally would be willing to trade him. And I talked about that last week. And the reason is because to me, this is not about being successful in 2025. This is about being successful going forward. I think there's a really good chance that Jawan Jennings is not on this team next year. And if that is already going to be predetermined, or it's likely that he's not going to be, then get something for him, even if it is a fourth, right? But the 49ers are not me, right? Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch can't look to next year. They're looking at how they can be successful this year. And there is zero question that this team with Jawan Jennings, whether he's paid or not paid, he's going to perform. This team is better with Jawan Jennings in 2025 than they are with a future fourth round pick. They are not worried about 2 years from now at this moment. Now that we are here, the offseason has happened. Yes, they trimmed some of the fat and did what they had to do. Of course, they were worried about the future then, and that was smart. But now that the season is here, they are worried about winning and competing. And so Jawan Jennings needs to be on the team for them to do that. So I fully expect that he will be here. I don't know that he will get a deal. I don't know that he should get a deal from the 49ers anyways. He should for himself. He definitely should demand a deal, yes. But I don't know that he'll get it with the 49ers. We'll see. But there was never a risk of a hold in from a caliber of player of Jawan Jennings. It doesn't happen. And for good reason. Another piece of encouraging news. Kickers go 8 for 8, both hitting from 50 plus yards. This one's interesting. I guess Nick Bosa said something that he was intrigued by watching the kicking battle. I'm sure it's fun to watch. I'm very curious to see if the 49ers will be completely honest with what they are seeing, or if it's like, well, Joseph was a little bit better, but Moody was close enough and he was a third round pick. We're going to keep Moody. I don't know. I don't know what their mindset is. Is this a true competition? Does it have to be super clear for one to win? And kicking competitions, and especially with Jake Moody, in my opinion, very, very tough. Very tough. Because Jake Moody in practice doesn't miss. He just doesn't miss. I don't know if I recorded a single miss from him in the 2 years that I was there. Maybe one, I guess. Maybe. But he rarely misses in practice, regardless of the distance. And I remember the first training camp, it was like anybody who watched the drafts or my opinion of the draft coverage was like, it was pretty harsh on old Jake Moody. And not because it was Jake Moody, but a kicker in the third round. What are we doing? And then I started diving into Jake Moody's numbers and where he struggled. And I was like, this is not, I don't think this is going to work. So sure enough, I show up to camp and I was, got a little worried. got a little worried those words were to come back and haunt me because the way the ball sounded coming off of his foot, how far he kicked the ball, how accurate he was, it was like, geez, man, they might have really still overspent. Okay, you don't spend a third round pick on a kicker, but dang, they might have really found one here. And that just wasn't the case. It was not the case. It wasn't the case last year when he didn't miss then either. He just is really good at kicking in practice. Now, maybe his new approach and everything that goes along with that, it is entirely possible that he is improved and that he is a better player. Like that's every year is different. And going into year 3, I would imagine even for a kicker is clutch. Like year 3 is a big deal. It's where a lot of players make major leaps. So I'm not ruling that out. But what I am ruling out, unless Jake Moody all of a sudden just starts getting the yips in practice, you're not going to truly be able to tell if he's going to be good this year if he just simply makes all of his kicks in practice, because that's what Jake Moody does. It's what he did 2 years ago. It's what he did last year. And I assume that's what he's going to do this year. Does it translate to the season? That will remain to be seen. So I guess really what I'm saying is I'd be pretty surprised if Jake Moody's not the kicker week 1. I'd be surprised. And I would also say that makes me nervous. That makes me nervous. We'll see how it goes. I'm rooting for him. They need him to be really good. I mean, I feel like I certainly wouldn't hold on to a take from 2 years ago. I feel like that's already been proven right that they overtook by taking a kicker in round 3 regardless. So at this point, it's like, let's just get a reliable kicker. And if that's Jake, awesome. But until I see that it's Jake, if he's the guy week 1 and I expect him to be, I'm going to be pretty nervous about the whole situation. So that's where I'm coming from on it. See what you guys are talking about. 808 Niner, member for 18 months. Appreciate you, 808. Says, what up, Jess? Hope you and your family are doing better. Yeah, I'm doing better. Doing better. Life's going to change a lot for me, but I'm starting to navigate like what that's going to be like. And I'll be fine. I'll be fine. God's got me. I'm not too worried about it. Dangerous Dave's Jeep, but thank you for checking in. I appreciate it. And thank you for being a member for 18 months. That's pretty dang clutch. What's up, Dave? He says, we all love you, Jesse. I think you know who does. Definitely, bro. I saw that your video, by the way. Hopefully you saw my comment. Oh, this was good. Are you talking about Papa J? Are you talking about the rosters? Like the overall rosters for the NFL that they ranked? That one was good. That one was interesting. Actually, you know what? Let's go through it real quick. Projected best starting lineups. Okay, so they have here. They have the Ravens 1. Okay, fair. Eagles 2. Really, I guess it doesn't matter where they're ranked. Just do I agree that they're better than the 49ers? Ravens, yes. Eagles, yes. Detroit, yes. Bills. Bills are really high on this list. Bills are really high on this list. I do think, though, when you go player for player, the Bills roster doesn't hold. The Bills roster doesn't hold up. Hold on. Had to plug in my computer there. It was dying on me. The Bills roster does not hold up the way that those other three do, in my opinion. Now, Josh Allen is otherworldly. He's the second best quarterback in the league. Like, that is very big, and that's a big reason why they are up here. They do have a good offensive line. The weapons are not great. You go through player for player on defense, unless you really, really, really know the league, you don't find the beauty in guys like, Taron Johnson, Christian Benford, like those types of players. I do. I think they're very good players. So, yeah, do I think they're better than the 49ers? Sure. What's tough about this though is that I think if I took the 49ers top 10 players and just went pound for pound across the league, those top 10 players are going to be, I don't know, at worst, maybe fifth, like fifth in the league, probably higher. The problem is that we're talking about a full roster, and the 49ers have so many question marks and so many rookies that are going to have to contribute that you can't, with good conscience, put them up in this spot. Kansas City, sure. Broncos, yes. I feel like people are either all in on the Broncos or all out. I'm in. I'm in on the Broncos. I think that their defense is going to be nasty, absolutely disgusting. They don't have weapons worth a darn, and that is worrisome. Although RJ Harvey, as a rookie, might be able to bring some flash. Bo Nix, it's also very dependent on what Bo Nix is or is not, because, I mean, quite frankly, Bo Nix is your two quarterback. We don't know. We just don't know. Commanders at number 7. Just looking through the roster right now. They have a good offensive line, or should have a good offensive line. Their defensive line has a lot of high draft picks, but does that mean they're going to be good? I don't know. Their secondary should be pretty decent. I guess. I feel like 7's rich. I definitely think team number 8 on this has a better roster than they do top to bottom, and that's the Rams. But I'll say that both of them probably better than the Niners. Okay, this is where I'm probably going to say I no longer agree with. This isn't a top 10 roster to me. Oh, the Niners are at 10. Okay, so you might have been talking about something different, brother. But either way, the Niners are at 10 here. I would put the Niners above the Bengals. Joe Burrow is awesome. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, awesome. But outside of that, what are we talking about? Oren Burks is starting for them. Their corners are Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill, and DJ Turner. I don't know, man. I just, and then they've got Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart on here as if they are going to play. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with those guys. Their offensive line is still meh. I don't know. I don't think that they have a better roster. I don't. Let me see if a team behind them. Oh, the Vikings certainly have a better roster than the Bengals and certainly have a better roster than the 49ers. Now, again, the quarterback position is so important, and I get it, they're being led by a rookie, but this is a... All right, let me go through this roster, and you tell me in what world the 49ers or Bengals are better than this roster, okay? And I'll go sans the quarterback position because I get it. That's, you can close the gap there. We don't know what J.J. McCarthy's going to be. I get it. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason. That's who they have listed at running back. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Oliver, Christian Darrisaw, Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, Will Freeze, Brian O'Neill. That offensive line is dumb talented. Then they've got Jonathan Allen and Jerome Hargrove over at defensive tackle. Shout out to Shannon Sharp for that. Then they've got Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel on the edge. They've got Blake Cashman at linebacker, Byron Murphy, Mekhi Blackman, and Isaiah Rogers at corner, Harrison Smith, Theo Jackson, and Josh Metellus at safety. That team is weapon for weapon, offensive line for offensive line. I don't know that there's a better top down offense minus the quarterback position than the Vikings. And their defense, which we know is extremely well coached, got much better on paper than it did last year. The Vikings are definitely a top 10 roster. But it comes down to JJ McCarthy, and that's a big but. I get it. Quarterback position almost counts for 2. That's fair. But the questions are around JJ. That doesn't mean that JJ is going to be bad. JJ might be really good. And if JJ is really good, let's put it this way. Let's say JJ is as good as Bo Nix was last year. Top 15-ish in the league. Then easily this is a top 10 roster. And I think JJ can be that good. I do. So then they have the Bucks. I like a lot of what the Bucks have. I do. I think same thing when we just go offensive weaponry through the offensive line. It's really good. A lot of question marks on defense. Some good players, though. They do have some good players on defense, certainly. But there's a lot of question marks there. I think they have a pretty good roster. I think I would put them above the Bengals. I don't know that I'd put them above the Niners. I would put them above the Niners. I would. I think right now on paper, they're a better team. Houston Texans at 13. That offensive line is just too awful for me to even. I mean, ugh. What is this offensive line? Like, what? Oh, I don't understand it. Then they got the Packers. Okay. I think I'm about at my limit as far as overall rosters. Although that defense is phenomenal. I don't know, man. This is tough. I think realistically, if you had the 49ers anywhere from 9 to 14, I could hear the argument. What I'm not going to hear, though, is that the Bengals are a top 10 roster and that the Bengals have a better roster than the 49ers. I don't see that at all. At all. I really don't. I definitely think you can make an argument for the Vikings, the Bucks, the Texans, maybe even the Packers. And that's about it. So, interesting list. This one's much different than the other list they did. I believe this one was all opinion based by the writers of ESPN, which is very different than the front office and exec opinions. Like those lists were very, very different. So no, he's not. He's just not at all. Let's see here. Dave says, I keep going back and forth on what our record will be. I think our defense will be stout, but I will say we missed the playoffs, so that would put us around 12 still. I have no faith in Lyle and Little and Brick. Around 12 wins? 12 wins, they're in the playoffs. Like, there's no doubt about that. So, do you mean 12? What 12 what? I'm not sure. And a lot of people really are out on Kyle. It's kind of crazy. I definitely, I definitely think that Kyle has his flaws and he's very frustrating. I just can't. I can't be completely out on him. Yeah, he's a good coach. For sure. I think Joe Burrow's a good player. I just think that right now there's a clear break in the top 3. Like Josh Allen's closer to 1 than he is 4. Right? Like Mahomes is the number 1 quarterback, but Josh Allen is closer to being 1 than he is number 4. And Burrow's closer to 5 than he is to 3 in my opinion. So, that's how I have it. 12th place. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, man. I do remember when they had that one-on-one battle. I also remember like somehow one game, even though Joe Burrow didn't play excellent in that game, where his team won 4 years ago outweighs what's happened over the last 2 years. I that makes sense. It definitely makes sense. I get it. But when they had that one-on-one football game and he lost, like Josh Allen lost to Mahomes, and then they advanced in the bracket and Joe Burrow beat him one-on-one. I remember that too. Yeah. No, they were ranked 10th. Sorry, 10th. Roster-wise 10th. I see what you're saying. No, roster-wise they were 10th. I think you can have them as low as like 13 or 14 and as high as 9. For sure, man. And it just out of curiosity though, like when he looked awful to start the last 2 seasons, had like sub 100 yard, multiple sub 150-yard passing games, um, and they lost. What did he do to contribute to the wins that were certainly necessary to help make that team get to the playoffs? I'm just trying to make sure that we're on the same page here with this. Dazza says Niners going 10-7 or 11-6 and knocked out in the first round. That's exactly what I think. Yes, I agree with that. Dave says you say lot out on Lyle. How long have I been? You've been out for a long time. I'm not saying you weren't the first, right? You definitely were, but you know, there you go. There you go. Now you're getting to the reality. There you go. We're talking about Burrow and Josh Allen. He thinks that Burrow's better than Josh Allen. And I'm here to say that crack kills. What's up, JC? Says my boy, gotta go back and watch because you can't let me know when you're live. Cool, cool, cool. All right, man. Listen, there's a bell notification that will let you know when I'm live. Also, keep an eye out on JC. I think he's one of the smarter people that I banter with on X and have for a while. It sounds like he might be in the works for his own channel, not just a 49ers channel, but just in general, a channel on YouTube, I think sports related. And if he does that, and once he gets his feet wet and comfortable with it, I think I'm gonna start having him on the show here. I think he's really knowledgeable. Also, he and I completely disagree on a regular basis, which goes to show you that you can disagree and still be friends. Like we've exchanged numbers. We've prayed for each other's families. We also argue like cats and dogs on Twitter about sports. And I love that. And I think having that on the show is a lot of fun. So if he does go that route, I think he'd be a great guest. So we'll see. Dangerous Dave says you can't lose that many big games and be good. Yeah. I see what you're saying. I mean, good, great. There's a separation. He's good. What's up, Matt? How you doing? Becoming a member again? This is what happens in the off season, right? You kind of just stop watching people and then, memberships fall off. I appreciate that you're back. Good to see you, brother. Miss you. Daza always shows support. He does. Papa shows me support too. Appreciate you both. Let's see. Yeah, and I agree with this, Tommy. He has won big games. He just hasn't won the big game. And so I think it's hard to just come up with the extreme of, okay, he hasn't won the big game, so he's awful. No, it's like he's won big games and so he's good. He's just not elite. He's just not elite. I'm back, my brother. Hope all is well. Much love. Appreciate you. It's getting better. I talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but thank you. You were definitely one of the many that reached out. As I'm noticing a lot of people in this chat actually that reached out. And again, I know that I didn't get back on an individual basis, but it doesn't mean that I didn't see it. And it certainly doesn't mean that I didn't appreciate it. So for those of you that reached out, you know who you are. And I 100% saw it. I 100% said thank you quietly and then kept working through what I was working through. So appreciate you, all of you. I would rank Burrow third best. You could argue he's fourth and his defense is definitely awful, but in clutch situations, he hasn't stepped up. I can't. I mean, here's my thing is like, the credit that we give to players for making Super Bowls as if that is so much more special than losing in a championship game or even in round two. It's like, whatever. You didn't win a Super Bowl. Ultimately, you didn't win a Super Bowl. Okay. So for Joe Burrow to be riding on beating Patrick Mahomes 3 years ago or 4 years ago in an AFC championship in a team sport in which his team didn't win the Super Bowl, it's like, okay. Now, that is not all that defines Joe Burrow. Let me be clear. We obviously see Joe Burrow play. We obviously know he's elite. But when we are separating players that are great or elite, using he made it to a Super Bowl is not a separator for me. It is not. So when I compare him to Lamar Jackson, and it's like, yeah, sure, Lamar has struggled, but Joe Burrow hasn't been great in the playoffs. He really hasn't. He's had moments where he's done well, but listen, if I gave you his numbers in the playoffs and compared them to Josh Allen, you'd be like, whoa, they're not even in the same stratosphere when it comes to playoff performance. Yet Joe Burrow's teams go further than Josh Allen's or had in the past. What am I supposed to do with that? If quarterback A throws for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, and loses, and quarterback B throws for 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 turnover, and wins, does that mean that quarterback A was better? No. No, it doesn't. It just means that his team won. So to me, like, yeah, we can say what we want about Lamar Jackson, and it's certainly valid when it comes to the playoffs. I get that. But he's there every year, and he has multiple league MVPs. I cannot say that Joe Burrow deserves to be ranked above him, especially when you add in some of the injury stuff. And there are things that Lamar can do that nobody in this world can do. Nobody can do. Nobody's been able to do ever. He's a special, special player. Special player. So until Burrow wins a ring and Lamar Jackson continues to struggle in the playoffs, and then Burrow's like the main catalyst as to why he wins said ring, I cannot put him above Lamar Jackson. Like the gap between him and Lamar is pretty significant right now, in my opinion. It is. All right, we got Matt. Can't lose that many big games. Papa J says, God bless you and your family, Jesse. I appreciate you, Papa J. I really do. Matt says, time to stir the pot. Herbert is going to be top 5 this year, possibly an MVP candidate. I don't know. I'm kind of down on the Chargers. I really was kind of disappointed with their offseason. I don't think they did a lot to get better, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But the whole Herbert thing was always funny to me because I said it back in January. All this is great. All this Herbert talk is great. But when the league talks throughout the ESPN article, when it comes out, and I believe that there's going to be another one as well, there's usually a couple. When the league talks, they will tell you that Justin Herbert is unequivocally a top 10 quarterback. It is zero question in my mind. And when the league talks, they will tell you that Brock Purdy is not. I said it in January, and it's exactly what happened. So for whatever the talk is around Herbert, sure, I get it. 4 picks, great. But ultimately, that team shouldn't have been in the playoffs, shouldn't have been in that position, and they were because of Justin Herbert. Because of Justin Herbert. And much like what Brock Purdy gets credit for, Justin Herbert also should get credit for, which is he is asked to carry out a pretty sophisticated offense when it comes to play action and turning his back and doing all of those things. So there's nothing that Justin Herbert lacks other than the playoff production, which certainly I'm not arguing he's an elite quarterback because he's not, but he's definitely top 10 because he's always had the production in the regular season. There's nothing that he can't. He's a smart quarterback, a very smart player. He's can do everything athletically that you would want. Yeah, Justin Herbert's a top 10 quarterback. Top 5, I do think that 5 spot's up for grabs. I could see it. I don't know if that offense is built for him to be an MVP, though. I don't. And what they ask him to do, if those numbers will be produced in that offense. So now, if this was an offensive-minded head coach, let's say he got Ben Johnson, I would say yes, for sure. Because we've seen Herbert put up monster numbers. We know he can do it. He did it for multiple years. But what this offense dictates and needs from him is very different. So Dave says, put it this way, I wish we had Burrow as a Niner. Yeah, well, yes, of course I would love to have Joe Burrow as a Niner. Yes. Foot, I like that name, says, I told a friend that Burrow will be a Niner in 2 years because I don't think that Brock Purdy works out in Cincy is the only franchise that would trade their superstar quarterback. Now, I love what you're saying here because you and I very much on the same page. Like our minds are that meme of the 2 minds and then there's like that wavelength between them. That's us. I said though that he would be a Ram. Because we don't get nice things like Joe Burrow around here is mainly the reason. And but I agree wholeheartedly with they're the one franchise dumb enough to trade their superstar quarterback. The Rams are also a franchise that are aggressive enough to do what it takes to go get him. And if you're trying to trade him to the NFC, I mean, are you really going to doubt Les Snead and Sean McVay to get that done? We already seen him do it once on the behalf of the 49ers getting ripped and having to panic to go get Trey Lance. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying that it could happen. And I hope it's the Niners. Unfortunately, I think it would be the Rams, and that would suck. That would suck. But it's so us. Like it's so what we're used to happening. So, what's up, Harris? All right, y'all. Listen, I'm going to get out of here. I really, really, really appreciate all of you more than you know. I will be back soon. Maybe tomorrow with Coach. We're discussing some things. He's got some computer issues, but he might be up and running. So maybe Coach and I will be back tomorrow. Don't want to make any promises, but we're trying. Either way, have a blessed night. We'll talk soon.